It is a popular genre these days, this whole forgotten women of history thing. There's so many overlooked women and dissed women and ignored women. And authors Marie Benedict, Jill Paul, and Stephanie Thornton, to my mind at least, are the queens of that genre right now. And they are amazing. They're incredible, incredible authors. But I think there's still room at the table for more writers to uncover more stories about true women, overlooked women of history. And my Edie and Love trilogy is yet just another one of those uncovered stories.
Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Morgan Giss McDonald, founder, CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I am here with the author of a brand new book, book one of a series. Book one's called Would That I Could. The series is Edie in Love, and I am so excited to have you here, author Jane Susann MacCarter. Jane, thank you for being here.
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
We are so excited, Jane, because the whole trilogy is launching. We're starting with book one, Would That I Could, and I would love for you to give our readers a little preview. Who are we going to meet in this novel, and what are we going to see unfold for us?
Okay, I will tell you. The first person we're going to meet in this book is a woman who has been passed over by history. It's a girl named Edith Carow. I mean, she is quite a young girl when we first meet her, who eventually goes on to become the First Lady of the United States, someone who did heaps and heaps of good that we still value. But today she's kind of been kicked to the curb, so to speak, mainly by, dare I say it, male historians who still believe, oh, she's the lesser wife. She's just the wife of convenience. She was somebody handy, and that she never could and never would hold a place in the heart of Teddy Roosevelt, not the way that his first wife, Alice, the gorgeous and gregarious, to whom Edie could never, ever measure up. So that's our main gal. She's got an uphill journey.
That's heartbreaking a little bit.
A little bit. But see, the thing is, I don't believe that premise for a minute, because I know that there is the rest of the story, to paraphrase Paul Harvey, I guess that's who it was. And that's what this trilogy is all about. It's the rest of the story. And it is a popular genre these days, this whole forgotten women of history thing. There's so many overlooked women and dissed women and ignored women. And authors Marie Benedict, Jill Paul, and Stephanie Thornton, to my mind at least, are the queens of that genre right now. And they are amazing. They're incredible, incredible authors. But I think there's still room at the table for more writers to uncover more stories about true women, overlooked women of history. And my Edie and Love trilogy is yet just another one of those uncovered stories.
I love it. I love it, Jane.
Oh.
So Edie, we meet her in book one, Would That I Could, and she's young in this first book, right? What's happening in her life when we meet her?
Oh, she is a schoolgirl. She is an impoverished gentlewoman. It's a tough time for her. Her family had money at one time. Now there's very, very little money, although she still goes in the highest circles just on the basis of her name alone. But she doesn't get the clothes or the parties or any of the accoutrements that the other gals get. So that's what she's up against.
And then what's her first kind of like big conflict, like where you kind of grab us?
Well, she she has been in love with Teddy back in the days when everyone called him Teddy. Of course, then he stopped that when he became a teenager, but Teddy and Edie were sweethearts from the cradle on, actually. And she always knew that that's who she wanted to marry, no matter, I mean, she knew that for a fact. But then she had an unfortunate meeting of the minds with her mother, and mother said, well, of course you cannot marry him because their family is diseased. And I mean, yes, her mother was a hypochondriac, but frankly, all of the Roosevelt children did have something wrong with them. And the mother said, it's scrofula, and I'm not going to let you marry anyone who's diseased. And well, it kind of goes on from there. Both sets of parents get very strange ideas about things, and the walls come up higher, and the challenges are more intense.
I love it. I love it. So for people wondering, okay, so what kind of story is this? This is historical fiction. There's romance. It's set in the 1880s. People who would enjoy kind of that young adult sort of tone and approachability. Do you think that's the kind of book that this
well,
sit next to, or would you
pretty much, but also I wrote this mainly for female audiences, pretty much, who love stories about women underdogs, because she is definitely an underdog, and she's a woman of history. And usually when that happens, there is either a man, singular or plural, who is misdirecting the credit or taking the credit. And but in this case with Edie, they're shoving all of the good things onto Alice and leaving very little for Edie. So yes, it's a love story. It's an underdog story. It's a political story. It's all of the above. So there's plenty of elements for plenty of people.
Love it. So if you're watching with us and you're thinking, I want to check that book out, the good news is you can actually get a copy of this book for free today. So because we're launching the book and we want to get this book in front of as many new readers as possible, you can go to paperravenbooks.com/would that I could, all one word, paperravenbooks.com/would that I could. It's linked up right next to this video. You can just click that link. It'll take you straight to Amazon, and you'll see right there on the right-hand side where you can get a free ebook of Would That I Could. And the better news is the whole trilogy is going to be released in back to back to back. So you can get into book one, go ahead and get to know Edie and Teddy and Alice and get sucked into the story, and you know that the next books are right on its heels, and you can actually even get previews of the next book. So we are releasing this entire trilogy as a reader experience, and you get to meet Teddy or TD and Edie when they're very young, and go through this whole epic journey with their lives. But also, like you said, Jane, like this is historical, this is political, and I'd love to know a little bit about your writing process, because this was a fairly large undertaking. How did you go about writing this book?
Oh, well, actually,
These books, I should say.
I knew that I wanted to write this book when I was 10 years old. I saw elements of it on a live TV theater production called Playhouse 90. It's decades before you don't even, I know you've never seen it, but the basics of the story got into my head, and it stayed there for decades and decades. They just had like the basic story of the young Teddy Roosevelt and the two young women who loved him simultaneously. So even today, though, I'd say many historians consider Alice Lee to be the angel. She's the perfect example of womanhood, and the historians consider Edie to be secondhand Rose, kind of an expedient warm body. And like I had mentioned before, I knew there was more to the story, and there is. So, but I put off writing this story for many years and did a couple of other books first until very recently I realized, my golden moment is right now, and I better write this right now. But I just couldn't do it until I took that leap of faith when I connected with PRB. I mean, really, it gave me the motivation to know that someone would be holding my hand through the process, because it's so different now from when publishing was even 5-10 years ago. So here I am right in the thick of it, thanks to you, and I'm very glad.
Well, we are so excited to be launching these books with you. I agree. Like, as soon as we started talking about your books, I thought, now's the time.
Well, yes.
The cultural narrative is so ready to, to have great stories. We always love great stories of characters overcoming obstacles and being together and that romance. And
true ones.
True ones who can be real inspirations to next generation of women. It's so important.
I hope so. Yes.
So can you give us like a little insight into the historical research? Because there was a lot of research that went into this, Jane.
Yeah, for many, many years. I would just accumulate it over the years. Like I said, the more I dug deep into, little bits here and there, I knew she was not just secondhand Rose and that Alice was so perfect. Alice was far from perfect, and but that all just took time to accumulate these things and to see what was really going on. And there was plenty of going on. And with each book, the stakes get higher and more difficult to reach. And so it's it pretty much concludes in a big morass of all of the worlds of these young people are sort of falling apart. And it kind of makes you wonder, is there going to be enough broken pieces around so they can put it all together again and go forward? Or are we dealing with an implacable destiny here and they have to suck it up? Or so that's part of the story too.
Because by the time we get to book 3, they're grown up. They've got real world responsibilities. If you think
they're in their middle 20s, looking at 30, and there's lots of ups and downs. And so I suppose it could be really a cautionary tale, an inspirational tale, both of the above.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, thank you. And I have one more question for you, Jane.
Yes.
Now that you've been thinking about this book since you were 10.
Yes.
And now you've gone through this whole journey. We're in the process of launching book 1, looking forward to 2 and 3 and releasing this entire trilogy. Where you are now, if you could go back to a younger version of yourself, maybe she's 10, maybe she's 20, maybe she's 40. You could just give a younger version of yourself some piece of advice or insight or something that you've learned since on your author journey.
Okay.
Anything that you would tell that younger version of yourself?
The first thing I would tell them, because the last 2 books, no one told me and I didn't tell myself, and I got into a world hurt, but don't read any books from any authorities from the olden days about publishing and think that it's going to be like that now, because it really isn't. And if you find a good handbook about publishing today, make sure it's really current, because otherwise it's not going to be a good roadmap for you. And I'm sure you must update your own material constantly. I know you do. So that is very reassuring. And that's the first thing I would tell younger me. The second thing I'd say is it really is who you know in publishing and in other life situations too. And who you know can really help you out, like the folks at PRB. So that, yes, that has been invaluable. But I'd also say be kind to the people that you meet along the way on your journey up, and take care to nurture them and cultivate them genuinely. Send them messages over the years, because someday these folks just might do you a really good turn. You never know. And even if they can't, or they don't, or they won't, at least you'll have made good friends along the way. So, and I've seen people do it the other way, where they step on too many people. So don't do that. Be nice. And then the last bit of advice that I can think of is, please do not spend years and years and years on a single book manuscript working to get it just right. Well, because for one thing, you don't really know what just right is anymore. And you need to take it to a team like PRB to shape it and trim it and polish it. That means so much. And in the meanwhile, you can start writing your next book right away, even if you just do one page a day. By 365 days, you've got a book. And remember, you always have another book inside of you, just chomping at the bit to get out. So what golden moment are you waiting for? Just do it now and let PRB help. And that's my advice.
Thank you, Jane. I really appreciate that. And it's been such an honor to work with you. You're a joy to work with.
Oh,
And I love your ambition to really get Edie and Teddy out into the world in a way that we can be inspired by Edie's true story of her life. And it's just been such a joy, such an honor. Thank you for letting us.
my pleasure to work with you too, indeed.
Well, folks, now is your chance. Go get a copy of Would That I Could. It's book 1 of the trilogy, Edie and Love. It's free today. paperravenbooks.com/would that I could. It is linked up right next to this video. Go ahead and do that now while you're here and you're thinking about it. You might read it over the weekend. That's fine. But get the copy now while you're thinking about it. Jane, thank you so much.
Thank you for everything.
You are so welcome. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.